What if I told you there was a farmer who celebrated every time his crops failed? Not when he had a great harvest. Not when he made money. But when everything he had worked for was destroyed. His neighbors thought he had lost his mind. They laughed as storms flattened his fields. They whispered when drought cracked his land. Some even pitied him, believing grief had finally broken him. But years later, when the worst disaster in the village's history arrived, those same people stood outside his gate, asking a single question. How did you survive when the rest of us failed? The answer wasn't hidden in his fields. It was hidden in every failure he had ever faced. In a quiet farming village lived an old farmer named Samuel. He wasn't wealthy, and his land wasn't the largest. Yet every morning before sunrise, he walked into his fields with hope in his heart and a smile on his face. The villagers admired his hard work, but they could never understand his strange habit. Whenever disaster struck, Samuel celebrated. One year, heavy rains flooded his crops just days before harvest. While other farmers sat in despair, Samuel invited his family to a simple dinner. He raised a cup of water and smiled. "Today," he said, "we learned something the harvest could never teach." His neighbors shook their heads. "Poor Samuel," they whispered. "He's pretending to be happy because he can't accept reality." The following year, a swarm of insects devoured nearly everything he planted. Once again, Samuel gathered his family. Instead of complaining, he opened a notebook and carefully wrote down every mistake, every weather pattern, and every lesson he had learned. His son finally asked, "Father, why aren't you angry?" Samuel smiled gently. "Because anger won't grow next year's crops. But wisdom might." Years passed. Another drought arrived. Another storm came. Another season ended in disappointment. Yet every failure became a teacher. Samuel experimented with stronger seeds. He dug deeper irrigation channels. He planted different crops together to protect the soil. He studied the wind, the rain, and the changing seasons more carefully than anyone else. While others cursed bad luck, Samuel collected knowledge. The villagers laughed every time another challenge came. But Samuel never stopped learning. Then came the year no one would ever forget. The sky remained empty for months. The rivers shrank. The earth split apart beneath the burning sun. It became the worst drought anyone had ever seen. One by one, farms across the village turned brown. Families feared they would lose everything. But as people looked toward Samuel's land, they couldn't believe their eyes. His fields were still green. His crops still stood tall. The irrigation systems he had built after previous failures carried just enough water. The stronger seeds he had chosen survived the heat. Every lesson from every painful season had prepared him for this moment. The villagers gathered around him, amazed. One man asked, "Samuel, what's your secret?" Samuel looked across his fields before quietly answering, "My secret isn't success. It's failure." The crowd fell silent. He continued, "Every time I failed, I had two choices. I could complain, or I could learn. I chose to learn. Each storm taught me something. Each drought showed me what to improve. Each disappointment made me wiser. If my first harvest had been perfect, I would have never changed. Failure became the teacher that success could never be." The villagers finally understood. Samuel had never celebrated losing his crops. He celebrated gaining experience. Because he knew that every failure carried a lesson for those willing to look beyond the pain. As the sun set over the village, Samuel stood beside his grandson. The young boy looked across the green fields and asked, "Grandfather, does failure ever stop hurting?" Samuel smiled. "It always hurts. But pain is temporary. The lesson lasts forever." The boy nodded, realizing that the strongest people are not those who never fail. They are the ones who never stop learning. And perhaps that's the greatest harvest anyone can ever grow. If this story inspired you, remember this the next time life doesn't go your way. Failure is not proof that you're finished. It's proof that you're still growing. Every successful person has faced setbacks. The difference is that they chose to learn instead of quit. If you believe every challenge carries a hidden lesson, leave her in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join Motivational Tales for more inspiring stories that remind us that our greatest victories are often born from our greatest struggles. Until next time, keep believing, keep learning, and never stop growing.